What? Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.
What's up, Fantasy Points? We are back for the Week 10 DFS cage match. If you're not familiar, we're going to be drafting teams against each other on DraftKings, having to stay under the DraftKings salary cap, but it's going to be a snake draft, one at a time. So first person goes, second person goes, third person gets the third and the first pick in the second round, and so on and so forth, snaking through until we have all of our teams filled. And we're playing for charity. So we have each picked out a charity that we're playing for. Whoever wins Fantasy Points is going to send $100 to the charity of the winner's choice. And it's always me and it's always Jake Tribbey on this show. And then we have a rotating guest every week. This week, our guest is DFS professional Brian Hooper, aka Brick75. Brian, how are you doing today?
Fantastic. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for coming on. Jake, how about you?
I'm doing great. My cage match record has not improved, but I'm as stoic as ever.
Unfortunately, mine has also not improved. We'll take a look at the lineups from last week, how things went. But first, let's take a quick look at the charities. And the first one here, as we said, Jake and myself did not win last week. Pat from the Fantasy Dog Pound was on last week, and his team took it down for the Wounded Warrior Project. So congrats to the Wounded Warrior Project for winning $100. Congrats to Pat for getting the win last week. My charity, because I did not win last week, I'm going to be going back to the same charity, Ruff Start Rescue. It is a rescue here in Minnesota, and I know people who work there. They're great people. They do great work for dogs that need homes. Jake, you're going back to beloved Asheville. Do you want to say a word or two about beloved Asheville?
Yeah, it's a great grassroots organization, a smaller charity in the Asheville area that I've heard awesome things about. Obviously, they need a ton of help right now after the hurricane, and I mean it's such a wonderful, beautiful area in general. I really want to see Asheville make a full recovery here, and beloved Asheville is a great way to or a great avenue for Asheville to make that recovery.
Very cool, very cool. And then, Brian, your charity of choice was the Ruth Project. Do you want to say a couple words about what the Ruth Project is and why you chose it?
Sure. It's funny. I actually was deciding between that one and a hurricane relief one as well. But I want it's to help foster kids in orphan cases, and they're based in Illinois. And I worked for the state for a while here in Illinois, and had some meetings with the guys who run the agencies that are in charge of the state wards and stuff. And it's not pretty, and it's really sad. And so ever since meeting with those guys, I've always had a soft spot for the and obviously it's just a horrible situation. I mean,
yeah.
we're starting the show off on a bummer here, but
we always do with the charities. It's usually
I mean, pretty obvious. Help the poor guys who don't have any parents.
Very cool, very nice. Now we'll bring it up to last week, our lineups from last week. And Jake, for I believe we're 9 weeks in. I think this is the 9th time your team has gotten last place. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is not correct. It's certainly not 9 times. I probably am leading in last place finishes, but I've not finished last every time. I've actually won, Neil. If you don't remember, I have won, and there were many other instances where a lot of very smart people were saying I should have won.
a lot of very smart people. Do you want to name some of them so I want to fact check you? So can you name some of those very smart people who said that you should have won?
The smartest.
I mean, the smart. You can really ask anyone who's really smart. Really a really good DFS player would agree. Obviously, I'm sure Brian does.
What about this lineup? Is this one that you think should have won? Did really smart people tell you that this lineup should have won? How do you feel about how you drafted here, knowing, of course, that you were in third place by kind of a mile here?
Yeah, so I had the swaps ready. Obviously, I originally drafted Dallas Goedert, who I swapped to Taysom Hill. That ended up being a pretty successful swap. That gave me the salary to get up from Puka Nacua to Cooper Kupp had Puka Nacua been ruled out. Unfortunately, he decided he was better off punching an opposing player midway through the first half than he was, just sitting out the game because he banged up his knee. So yeah, I would say that's probably the main reason I lost. But overall, I was still pretty happy with the team here. Quentin Johnston soaked up all of the fantasy points in LA, but it was mostly due to busted coverages from what I read in Scott Barrett's Everything Report. Jameis Winston lost, I believe it was the second most total yardage to drops of any quarterback this season. James Conner had a great workload, but he lost a goal line rushing touchdown to Trey McBride. He lost another one to Trey Benson, and then Amari busted off. What was that, Neil?
Didn't James Conner get hurt mid-game too? I feel like
he did. The injury played a role in him losing those goal line reps, and he still went over 100 yards and I believe hit 17 or 18 carries. So the workload was there. He just couldn't get there in terms of touchdowns. Obviously, Alvin Kamara was a strong pick, and then the game stack didn't quite work out. Had I been on the Chargers side of the Cleveland Browns game, I would have been in a much better spot here, at least with Justin Herbert compared to Winston. And did not draft Cedric Tillman, unfortunately, who was really the only Browns wide receiver that got you there.
Brian, you've been a DFS professional for, I think, over a decade at this point, and I think you've played all sorts of different types of contests. What do you think about a double stack with a bring back in a 3-man contest?
Cash game, or no? This is a winner take all.
It's a winner take all 3-man.
Winner take all 3-man. Could be right. Probably not necessary. Honestly, I wouldn't know unless I ran the numbers. But I mean, I do think like big stacks in small fields, like 5, 10, 15 mans and stuff can be pretty sharp a lot of the time. So that's why I'm saying, it's a winner take all. It's kind of a tournament.
Yeah.
I don't know. It looks like the chalk that missed, he has some of that last week because a lot of the chalk hit last week.
Yeah. And Brian, I will add that Neil has done this exact thing multiple times on this show. He's just trying to throw me under the bus to make himself look cool.
That's 100% what I was doing. I was hoping that you were going to shit on Jake and then I wasn't going to bring up that I do it like most weeks. I basically always stack and often have a bring back.
Yeah.
But because Jake did it first year, mine probably is also, but we want to hear your thoughts on it.
The answer is always in comparison to what, right? We talk about this at Endgame a lot. Dan has the same opinion as me. It's in comparison, like one of the first videos I did on my channel. I don't really do videos on my channel anymore though, was talking about correlation, and I just use like an extreme example to kind of prove the point of, like, let's say they allow a high school team to play in the NFL, and you could stack their QB and their wide receiver. There's correlation there in theory, but it's a high school team and they're going to get killed and they're not going to score any fantasy points. So you should probably take the unstacked NFL players in your DFS lineup, right? So like it's in comparison to what, how much you're giving away to force these stacks in. And if it's nothing, then it's just a bonus.
Yeah, I don't think I was giving up a ton of projection to get to guys like McConkey and Elijah Moore. They were projecting pretty well across the board, regardless of what site you looked at. Yeah,
there were strong point per dollar projections. I will say, so Brian has commented in YouTube, and if you want to find his YouTube channel, you can just click on his name in YouTube chat, and it's in like a playlist on your channel, I think, Brian. And I would highly recommend it to anybody who's like newer to DFS. I feel like I've learned a lot from Brian over the years, and some of it has just been like random stuff on Lulz where you and Pete get into talking. But I thought that video series that you have on your channel is very good. So I would recommend that for anybody who wants to check out that video Brian was talking about and some of the other stuff on his channel. Very good stuff there. I, of course, got second last week, brutally losing by under 3 points. Luckily, I was on a show. I do a Sunday Night Football show on my own channel, so did not have to watch this happen. But man, I kind of thought that I was on my way to winning with Kenneth Walker at the end. Apparently, did not get there. Overall, I mean, I think this is at least the second time, maybe the third time this season that I picked a quarterback who was benched mid-game, which maybe I need to stop taking the worst quarterbacks in my lineups. I just he seemed too good at 4,500. Turns out Gardner Minshew, the bench risk was real. I didn't think Desmond Ridder was going to be a threat, but I was wrong about that. The Brock Bowers did well. I guess I didn't have Jacoby Myers in this one. That one would have really helped if I had Jacoby Myers in this lineup. Sadly did not. I did the double tight end with Brock Bowers and Mike Gesicki. That was kind of I sort of lucked my way into Gesicki with my final pick. I had 3,200 left over, sorted by value, and Gesicki was the best available. It was not like a huge target for me, but went pretty well getting Gesicki in this lineup. The one thing that did not go well for me, actually a lot of things didn't go well for me here, but the biggest thing, Chris Olave did get hurt on his first catch. And, you know, I'm not one to make excuses. So I'm not making an excuse here. I'm just pointing out that I definitely would have won if he had not gotten hurt. But no excuse there.
I mean, it was a hospital ball so bad that it didn't just break Olave's brain. It broke Michael Thomas's as well. I mean, he completely snapped on Twitter going after Derek Carr and the Saints.
I didn't read his whole. I heard that he kind of went off on Twitter. I did not read the whole rant there.
Yeah, Slant Boy went nuts on Twitter after the Olave concussion. It was quite entertaining.
Yeah, and then finally the winning lineup. Pat from Fantasy Dog Pound, of course, has already commented in the chat. Took it down, and Brian, I'm gonna give this one to you. I haven't even shown you. This is your first time seeing the lineup, so you haven't really had a chance to look at it. We can see he's got a Bo Nix with Cortland Sutton stack. I don't know. What do you think about this lineup that won, Brian?
I had a strategy going in here. Was if I didn't know who was on the show last week, and if it was one of our friends, I was going to shit all over this lineup. But if I didn't know him, I was just going to be like, "Oh, it looks pretty good." So, and I'm not familiar. Pound, no offense. Or maybe I'm just mixing up names here. So, but
he's the Pound.
But it looks just fine to me. I mean, Bo Nix was the A-chain, chalk. Lamb was the number one in Battle Royale pick last week. Swift was up there, I think. I can't remember everything last week. Sutton was definitely in my field for DraftKings. Madison was higher projected last week than I thought because I have him in one of my home leagues and he stunk it up. Yeah. So I don't know. It feels like there could be more chalk on these teams, just generally speaking. But honestly, I have no idea. I've never really done a 3-man draft on DraftKings with the salary cap. So
I'll say this. I think it's because we do it on Wednesdays. So like a lot of the chalk comes after we do the show where it's like a player gets ruled out and suddenly players look a lot better. So in our defense, we are trying, like we're playing, like we're all sorting by like best point per dollar projections, which is ultimately going to be the chalk. It's just, it looks different on Wednesday than it does on Sunday. There have been a couple weeks where we've been able to like kind of anticipate the news and get ahead of it, but we don't put a lot of research into the lineups before.
So what's the strategy here? Do you guys not revealing your secrets? Do you pick the you don't care about salary in the beginning and kind of fill it out later?
I don't have a great strategy. I sort by point per dollar, and then I'll take one of the best point per dollar plays. I have taken, man, who was the tight end that I took with K. Otten? I took K. Otten with the first overall pick, and I got crazy. laughed at, and then I won with K. Otten putting up like 30 fantasy points because he was just the best point per dollar play on the slate on that one. Sometimes I'll go a little bit of a different direction, take one of the better, like if I really feel good about a matchup for a player who's not like the best point per dollar. Like I did there was a week that went horribly for me where it was Washington playing Carolina, and I felt really good about stacking that game, and that was, I think, one where my quarterback got benched midway through the game. Not great strategy, I guess I would say. Jake, do you have a strategy going in?
I guess I'm generally just kind of jamming in as much value as I can early on, and then ending up with a couple of awkward final picks that are generally like the Tyler Lockett's of the world that I'm just not super excited about, but help me fill out a lineup. Before we move on, can I acknowledge a chat comment? Someone wants an update on Brian schooling the youth of America in Madden. I'm very curious about this, Brian. So you're a top 100 Madden player right now. That's correct?
Well, they update it every month. They reset it. So it just flipped over. But yeah, I ended at like 15 last month.
Ooh,
that's insane. So how much Madden have you played like recently, or I should say over the last few years? Are you like a lifelong Madden player, or what's your history with Madden?
No, yeah, I stopped in about 2005 or 6.
Wow.
I played. I was into it then, and I got up to like the 3rd rank then. And then they switched the game and it sucked, and I just stopped playing. And I for some reason I was watching some YouTuber, And I'm like, that looks kind of fun. I'll give it a shot. And then, of course, then I started losing right off the bat. And I didn't like that at all, Jake. So I had to teach these youngsters a lesson.
Because they were using words he didn't know. They were saying things
they were
like
using words like glaze
and glaze.
Wow.
They said I was capping, and I didn't. I think, I mean, like if you guys think about it, right? The country after 2006 has gone downhill, and I'm not saying it's all because I stopped playing Madden, but it's probably quite a bit of it. Yeah. So I take no pleasure in it, but yeah, I'm back playing Madden, for now.
So, as somebody who has not played a ton of Madden, I think I played in those days. Like that was like I graduated college in 2006. I'm pretty sure I played a little bit back then, but just casually. Do you think that your advantage in playing is like strategic, like because you're like better at like making play decisions, or do you think you're like more nimble with your fingers? Like, what do you think your advantage is in Madden over these dumb kids?
It might be a little hand-eye coordination. I might have a little bit, but I think it's really just obsession. Just doing it over and over again, and then coming up with a better strategy through playing a shit ton. Yeah, I don't really think I have too much. I mean, I imagine that just like a certain percentage of people are gonna make mistakes because they're dumb. So
yeah, for sure. And we see NFL coaches make, like, I bet you make better decisions than an NFL coach does, like with clock management, that type of stuff.
I think in the old version of Madden, they did. The new one's a little arcadey. So it's a little bit, I don't know how much it would carry over, but some of the clock management in the NFL is ridiculous. So yeah,
it's really bad.
It's definitely possible.
I think the average Madden player has notably better clock management than the average NFL coach.
Yeah, it's constantly on their mind for sure.
Oh,
yeah. So it's definitely possible. I don't know how much. I would imagine they would come up with great like play art and plays and stuff like that. Like if they were given the opportunity, I don't know if it would be realistic in real life though. Like like, oh yeah, you just run this direction, at top speed and make this catch that no human can actually make. I don't know how realistic a lot of the Madden to real life would be. I don't know. I bet a lot of these young coaches though, like I bet what's his name, the Miami coach,
Mike
played
McDaniel.
Madden. I bet he played a lot of Madden. I wouldn't shout.
Play some Madden.
Yeah, the San Antonio Brahmas offensive coordinator AJ Smith is like a big time Madden player. He actually got a couple plays put in the run and shoot playbook in college football 25.
Oh, I heard about that.
Yeah, he's based some of his offense off of some things that he's seen in video games. I mean, it's obviously not like a 1-to-1, but there are, like, I play a lot of college football 25. There are a lot of plays where you're just like RPOs, where you're basically just reading an overhang defender like you would in college football. And as long as you read that guy correctly every time, it's always like 5 to 8 yards. So,
they have that in Madden too.
Yeah, they do.
Final question. Do you think that you have played LeBron James? He is also a top 100 Madden player. And I know you've talked about this on Lowe's. And also, would you hire LeBron James because he's so good at Madden? Would you hire him if you were an NFL team owner? Would you hire LeBron James as offensive coordinator, head coach? Like, would he be a coaching staff member you'd consider?
No, well, considering I beat him in Madden, no, of course I wouldn't hire him. You have to be able to beat me.
What if I told you he's ranked 5th overall? I don't know if that's true. I just made that up, but like
5th overall in Madden I really don't know what I would love to see. I would love to see someone try, but I'm not sure. As much as I hate to admit it, I'm not sure there's a ton of real life carryover to real football, unfortunately.
All right, fair. Okay. Let's move on. Let's do our draft. And Brian, as I have told you, you get to choose which draft spot you go with. So you can choose 1, 2, or 3. And then Jake, I will go before Jake with the other spots. So let me know which position do you want?
Well, this is not a shameless plug, but it is the reason I would take 1 is me and Dan did some videos on Endgame about draft strategy for snake drafts and what the equilibrium strategy is and stuff like that. And one of the things that he found in in his simulations is in small field snake drafts, you can oftentimes kind of get screwed if you are on the turn at the ass end. So if you're in a 3 or 4 man, not always, but so like why risk it? You should always just take number one. And in the secondarily, almost always too. Now these are correlated sports. In uncorrelated sports though, you just take the first and you always take the highest ranked player unless you have some sort of information the field doesn't have, like, Christian McCaffrey's hurt or something like that. You just take the number one guy. At least that's what the equilibrium strategy is.
So you're going to take the first pick.
So first pick, yes.
Right. Have you looked at who you want to take with the first pick?
I haven't. I mean, I'm looking at players. I'm gonna go Justin Jefferson.
Son of a bitch.
Okay.
No, that was one of the players I was considering, but I'm not actually mad at it. Great matchup with Jacksonville. They just seem to leak points. So hard to argue with Justin Jefferson as the 101. But I wore my purple flannel because I thought for sure I'm gonna be able to draft Justin Jefferson today. So that's a bummer.
I forgot the Minnesota guys here.
Yeah. I thought you were gonna go with Caleb Williams. So that's a bummer.
I should have went with that. I wasn't thinking about
you
that.
Could probably take him later. All right, Justin Jefferson, strong pick there. I then am going to go with Alvin Kamara. He is the top point per dollar option at fantasy points. And of course, fantasy points projections have been killing it. So I'm happy to get Alvin Kamara with my first pick. And I will send it on to Jake with back-to-back picks at the 1-2 turn.
Yeah, I think there's a clear top value QB here. So I'm going to go with Justin Herbert for my first pick. And then my second pick is a bit more debatable. I guess I'm wondering.
I'd say your first pick was pretty debatable.
I just don't see how you could say that when he's clearly the best point per quarterback on the slate. The Chargers have been throwing a ton, Neil. I don't know if you've heard. And he's healthy. I'm gonna go with Christian McCaffrey. I don't know how long he's going to stay on the board, and I'm skeptical of what the workload can be. But also, why would they hold him out this long if he's not going to be, close to the old role? And we know, with the old role, he's a $10,000 player on DraftKings here. So it's a bit higher risk than maybe you should take in a 3-man. But what do I have to lose? My record's 1-8. And as a DFS stoic, everyone knows that I will be unbothered even if Christian McCaffrey plays 5 snaps this week.
You keep using this phrase DFS stoic, and I don't think I know what it means. What does that mean? Is it tough to define?
Stoicism is like you can endure hardship without complaining.
I think Scottie Pippen, so he was my favorite basketball player in the 90s, and he was constantly described as stoic. And I always thought it was just being like stone-faced, like you just don't react. But I never actually looked up the definition. So, okay, interesting.
He's like the Sisyphus of DFS.
Yes.
So he's always rolling the ball up a hill?
Pushing my boulder up the hill. No matter how many times Neil Orfield tries to destroy my spirit, it will remain strong. Every Wednesday night at 7:30 p.m.
This is about you, Jake. He doesn't know what it means. It's just provocative and it gets people going. I like that. That's exactly right. Exactly right. All right. So now it's back to me for my second pick. And
by the way, that's the entire Davis Maddock podcasting strategy. Doesn't know what it means, but he says it anyways.
It's just Aaron Rodgers too. I mean, that's exactly like Aaron Rodgers. Yeah. Just using big words. It's fun. Well, you know what? I wore the Vikings purple with my plan to get Justin Jefferson, and I was not able to get Justin Jefferson, so I am going to instead go for Aaron Jones, also in a great matchup with Jacksonville, just 6,700. Get my running backs looking great to start. So that's going to be my approach in this one. And I have 50-28 left per player the rest of the way. And back to Brian for his second and third picks.
Well, the two players I mentioned before we went live, Neil took both of them. Just so I understand, if whoever's doing this show next week, don't tell him anything
You don't want to share your secrets.
Don't share any players with Neil before the show. You know what? I have to do it. I have to do it. I have to go with. I have to lock this in. I think I have to lock in a Caleb DJ Moore.
Yes, I love that. I love that.
Very on brand.
Caleb DJ Moore stack.
All right, and you know what I love about that. Now you have both taken your quarterbacks, so I can just wait and wait and wait at quarterback. No, pressure on me to reach and get one. So that's a great spot for me. I just game theored you guys for sure.
Wow.
I kind of played a.
We weren't taking
Jedi
Sam
mind trick.
Darnold anyways. We were never taking Sam Darnold, so it doesn't matter.
That's fair. I thought you might, since you have Justin Jefferson, but that's it's good to know. All right, so it is back to me. I have 2 running backs. All right. So I have, of course, given this a ton of thought, and I am just about ready to make my pick. Man, I don't love these options at the top of wide receiver.
Yeah, wide receiver value looks very thin right now.
It really
We'll
does.
see if anything opens up later in the week, but it's very rare, at least in the fantasy point projections, to not have a single wide receiver projected over, 2.6 effectively fantasy points per dollar.
And like every receiver who is at the top of fantasy points per dollar is in like a bad matchup too. It's gross this week.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna take somebody. Almost landing on it. Man, it is so gross here. You know what? I'm going to continue to pass on wide receiver. Instead, I'm going to go with George Kittle. Lock him in at tight end, 5,800, paying up there. So I'm down to 4,900 left per player, and I'll send it to Jake.
Neil, does it concern you at all that Christian McCaffrey is going to eat up all of Kittle's short area targets this week?
Not at all. Yeah, no, I just think Kittle is just like the better player than Christian McCaffrey. I think he's really going to eat into Christian McCaffrey's role. Yeah, because now the 49ers have seen larger sample size with George Kittle. He's kind of a young player. So they finally discovered that he's a really good tight end. So I think he's going to really eat into Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, he hasn't gotten any procedures that are deemed illegal in the United States, though. So, if he was flying overseas to get, stuff injected into his ankles, I might be concerned. I might agree with you. All right, here. So I have back-to-back picks, right, Neil?
You do.
All right. I want to go. I was really hoping Neil would not take a wide receiver because I want to grab Josh Downs here. The on-paper matchup isn't great, but Buffalo's a major underneath funnel and a slot funnel on top of, Downs' raw volume just being absolutely incredible. In his 3 games, Joe Flacco has started. Downs is averaging a 34% first read target share, 10 targets per game, 17.3 expected fantasy points per game. Those are all top 8 marks among wide receivers over the full season. And I think I want to lock up a bit of running back value here. And it looks like the best way to do that would be with DeAndre Swift. So he will be my next pick. I don't have any great notes on Swift outside of the volume is really, really strong. And I think the price is solid. He's popping as a solid value. New England run defense isn't great either from what we have seen this season.
Brian, we all know, of course, that you are like number 1 Bears fan in all of Illinois. How do you feel about DeAndre Swift this season?
I think he's done fantasy wise anyways. Like he's hit his round, probably the best in that kind of range in best ball.
Yeah,
really. So he started pretty weak. Their offensive line's really bad. So like some of these weeks are pretty brutal to watch, but he's getting fantasy points. So who cares?
Yeah, no, it's hard to argue. He's been doing well. All right, it is back to me. And again, it's not pretty. I think I am going to go. Gonna trust the fantasy points projections once again because I need a little bit of value here. I'm down to 4,900 left per pick. I am going to go with Nick Westbrook-Ikine. 3,800 looks like a strong point per dollar play. Nice matchup with the Chargers. If the Chargers do throw a little bit more, that'll obviously benefit the passing game for Tennessee also. So yeah, the value looks good enough. Obviously, no DeAndre Hopkins there anymore, so the role gets a little bit better. So I think that's a strong enough pick. And we'll send it back to Brian for back-to-back picks, 4th and 5th round picks.
Okay, I'm at 4,800 left, huh? What happens if I end up taking too much salary and I can't fit my defense in or something? Does that happen?
It has not happened yet. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know that we've talked about. I think it just means you have to run back your previous pick and try again. I don't know, Jake. What do you think is the repercussion there?
Yeah, I can't really see any other solution outside of what you said, Neil. Maybe there's something I'm overlooking, but yeah, I don't really know if we'd have another option. I guess we could just kick you off and me and Neil play.
Yeah, then you're just like you lose. Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, no, I think the punishment there is just like you have to run it back, and theoretically somebody else could have taken somebody you want. I don't know, but yeah, I think you just
you would just end up with
last
picks further back. So I guess that's probably an adequate punishment.
Yeah, and if you're forced into like a $3,000 player at the end, you just have to play a $3,000 player.
Yeah,
let's stick Bijan Robinson in there.
Bijan. All right.
4320
left for player. You just have a defense and a tight end, so it's kind of you have some places to.
I know one really positive note with Bijan. Scott Barrett noted this in the everything report, was that like previously he had been getting pulled out a decent amount in positive game script. He continued to play on Atlanta's final 2 drives, even with Dak Prescott out of the game and Atlanta being up by multiple scores. So certainly a good sign for his usage in these future weeks, especially in a game against New Orleans where Atlanta should be heavily favored.
I need to look at the injury chart. Some of this stuff we don't know yet.
Yeah.
Let's do Hunter Henry.
Ooh,
Hunter Henry. I'm busy looking up an injury right now. But here, I'll get him in there. Hunter Henry. So we've got a stack and a bring back.
Save a little salary.
Yep, 44.25 left per player now. Yep, that helps. All right. And then it goes back to me, and I have 51.20 left per player. And it's a doozy. I'm thinking about a few different spots that I am considering and struggling with where I want to land on them. Maybe I should just look at a broader look at like the matchups. Are there any matchups that look awesome to me? It's really a tough week. This is just nothing like stands out as this game is going to be awesome. It's all kind of meh. Maybe I'll sort by projection.
Yeah, there are no particularly high totals this week. If I remember right, the best total game's Sunday Night Football. Well, and, you have Bengals Ravens tomorrow night too, which obviously would have been an incredible game for the main slate.
Right.
Yeah, that's at a 53.5 total. Wow, the Bengals Ravens game. San Francisco Tampa Bay is at 50.5, so I guess that'll be the premier game this week.
I've already got the tight end who's going to get all the usage there, so got that kind of in the bag already. Maybe I think I'm going to pay up, and I'm going to go with Garrett Wilson.
Ooh, I was thinking about Wilson.
Good. I love to hear that. That's always my favorite thing that you say.
The usage for Wilson has been so good. This Jets offense is a bit like the psychedelic version of the Rams, where it's just incredibly condensed around 2 wide receivers and a running back, and that's it. There's just no one else who's even relevant.
My struggle there is I kind of feel like Devontae Adams is probably going to become Aaron Rodgers' favorite at some point. Not definitely, but like sort of feels like he might, just because they have that long connection.
That was my take initially. I think I've come around a bit more to the idea that Garrett Wilson is just straight up better, and that Aaron Rodgers will be targeting the better player more, even though he is best friends forever with Devontae Adams.
Right. Jake, now you get back-to-back picks.
All right. Well, the tight end that I wanted is still on the board, so I will start off with Taysom Hill. He had both of the Saints inside the 10 carries last week. They can't give all of the work to Alvin Kamara. All of the receivers are beat up. He set a season high in route share. Yeah, it's just very, very rare that you can get a $4,000 tight end who projects for 8 to 10 touches pretty easily with a ceiling of maybe 12 or 13, including, goal line rushing work. That's pretty great. You could quibble with the upside a little bit, but realistically, it's a very strong point per dollar play no matter what. Beyond that, it's a little tricky. Let's see, I have 5,000 remaining per player. I'd probably like to get up to a better flex play. So I think I'm looking at value a bit more. Oh man, I don't know. I kind of want to take Ridley, but I'm a little scared Will Levis comes back and just nukes him. Okay, I'm gonna go with Noah Brown actually instead. Noah Brown is a really good player. I think it's this has been true for at least dating back to last season. And he set a season high in route share last week at 73%. This has really been his big issue, is that on a per route basis, he's been a fairly effective player for Washington. It's just he's never really been able to get above 55, 60% of the routes. It seems like they're finally coming around to him being, pretty clearly the second best wide receiver on the team behind McLaurin. So 75% route share for Brown is worth a lot, obviously, in a hyper efficient offense. And, I think one would assume that I'm team wide receiver cornerback matchups don't really matter, but I do think Joey Porter matters to some extent. And obviously he would shadow McLaurin over Noah Brown if you're concerned about that sort of thing. So I think that's a note in Brown's favor.
Interesting. I was going to ask you if you're concerned at all about the Pittsburgh matchup, because they're obviously a good defense overall, but because he doesn't have the worst of the matchups, you're okay with going there?
Yeah, I think outside of JPJ, they haven't been particularly tough. Let me pull up the schedule adjusted, but he's just so damn good. And then the rest of their defensive backs are more mediocre, was sort of the read I had on the defense there.
Right. All right. Huh. Seeing some discrepancies in the places I'm looking for value here.
Yeah, you'll always see the biggest gaps site to site in projections on Wednesdays because no one's looked at other site stuff, and every site regresses pretty heavily on the spots they're unsure about.
Right. I think I'm going to go ahead and trust the fantasy points projection again, and I'm going to go with Jalen Tolbert. Not the best matchup in the world with Philadelphia, but also he's been pretty involved in the Dallas offense. Man, I do have concerns about Cooper Rush at quarterback. I don't know. I might change my mind here.
It's not great with Cooper Rush, but it's also just like who's going to earn the targets here. I was I helped Chris Wecht out with the fantasy points projections, and I did the first pass at the Cowboys, and there's not a ton of great receiving volume to go around, but you really can't give it to anyone except for Tolbert and Jake Ferguson right now, because Kevontae Turpin is not a target owner. I believe it's I'm blanking on Jalen Brooks, if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah, he's a guy who has not shown much of an ability to earn targets, and obviously he's a new player in this offense in his rookie year, if I'm remembering correctly. So yeah, there's just nowhere else for the volume to go, and they should be playing from behind. Even if Cooper Rush completely sucks, he probably gets 4 or 5 receptions no matter what.
True. I want to go a different direction, but I cannot find anybody that I actually want to play who's a good value. This is just rough, man.
It is.
I've never seen a slate quite like this before. And how much do I have left per player? Because 52.66 left per player. I probably don't need to go that cheap. 5,100. I could probably go a little bit higher. Yeah, I'm going to do that instead. I'm going to go with, even in a tough matchup, I think I'd rather go with DeAndre Hopkins against Denver. I don't like taking somebody against Denver, but pretty cool to see that he came in and immediately was a big target for Patrick Mahomes, scored 2 touchdowns. So I think I'd prefer that. So I'm going to go with DeAndre Hopkins, and I'm going to send it to, I just put him into your lineup. Oh, not in your lineup. You made both your picks, right?
Yeah.
6. I have 6, and then okay. Oh yeah, I have 46 on a left per player, so I am hurting for value. Okay, so but I'll do it anyway. I'm going to go DeAndre Hopkins and then figure it out. And I'll send it back to Brian. You have back-to-back picks. You have 44.25 left per player.
Give me Raheem Jarrett. Let's see how much salary I have after that.
Rock Jarrett. 4,700 left with a running back, flex, and defense left.
Okay. Ooh. It's getting rough. Let's see here. So what can I spend?
There, I made the screen bigger for Bink King.
Man, running back's not helping me here. The Washington situation, but I think Brian Robinson practiced, so that doesn't help. Let's see here. Give me Jalen Warren.
Man, Isaac Orendo is 6,400. I guess they didn't know if McCaffrey was coming back. Interesting. All right, so 4,400 left per player, 8,800 left overall. So you can kind of figure out.
Yeah, that should work. I should be able to.
Yeah. Oh, you just made 2 picks. Okay.
Yeah,
so
you're up. You're up.
Yep. Okay. And I have 43.66 left per player. Probably not going to be able to spend a ton at quarterback. So let's see what's here.
I was thinking about Shepard, Binking's comment there, but he didn't practice today.
They're going to be totally out of receivers.
If McMillan's out and Shepard's out and Godwin's out and Evans out, Jared should get 100% of the snaps. So I don't know. I would have rather taken Shepard, but he didn't practice today, and we are doing this today. So
I did go with Sam Darnold. Nice little stack there with Aaron Jones. I don't love the quarterback with running back stack in general, but I think in a 3-man, I'm more okay with it. And Aaron Jones is pretty involved in the passing game, so I'm okay with that. And I have 34.50 left per player, and I will send it back to Jake for back-to-back picks. 52.66 left per player.
Yeah, I think I definitely want to grab a higher priced running back here. It's a little tricky with the salary, and there's just so minimal wide receiver value. Let's see here. If I go... All right, I think I'm going to go with Kendrick Bourne. No, wait, hold on. I can step up slightly. My first pick will be Saquon Barkley. And then from there, I feel like I should let the wide receiver come to me. I think I might actually take a defense. Yeah. I'll grab the Bears defense to pair with my boy DeAndre Swift. Stick with the Chicago team on this, or the Chicago theme on this show. A lot of Bears players off the board.
Yep. And then you have 4,500 left for your receiver. All right. And it comes back to me, and I have 34.50 left per player. What are the cheapest defenses? 2,400. Okay. So then I could do a 4,500 wide receiver. And try to take whoever Jake wants.
Yeah, if we both have 4,500 left at wide receiver, you'll have a great opportunity to ruin me.
That'd be great. Thinking about it. All right, let's see what defense.
There's so many good $4,500 receivers. I don't even know how you'll decide. Mason Tipton, perhaps?
I feel like you're trying to throw me off, but that is kind of what I was thinking.
I mean, that really is as good as it gets in this range. I'm looking at the names. I'm not I'm not excited. I need Saquon to drop 40 to make up for whoever I pick here.
There is Pop Douglas is right there too. Ray McLeod, like but there are plenty of gross options for us to choose from if I go that route. I got to think. All right, what defense do I want though? Because maybe I'll just go pay up at defense and go even grosser at wide receiver.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too initially, but I realized Kendrick Bourne and Saquon Barkley was going to leave me with like 500 in extra salary, and on a gross slate, you probably don't want to leave that much for a 3-man.
All right, I'm gonna sort by defenses, see who looked the best. And you took Chicago already. Yeah. All right. I don't really love playing Denver against Kansas City. I'm not taking Jacksonville. Man, this is interesting. I'm going to go to No, I don't love that. All right, I'm struggling a little bit with this one. This is a tough decision for me. Oh, interesting. I could go. Are there any? All right, let me just look real quick if there are any wide receivers I could take if I take the running back that I want to take. Or sorry, if I take the defense that I want to take. They're not great, but I could probably make it work. This is tough. Because I could take the Eagles defense going against Cooper Rush next week. Might look pretty good. But I don't really love it. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do Bills against Joe Flacco and the Colts. Yeah. Then I have 3,700 left for my final pick. But before we get to mine, Brian has back-to-back picks to close out his team. 4,400 left per player.
I'm pretty sure I know what I want. I'm trying to figure out the math here to finish it off. I think I'm going to go with Kelsey. No one's taking Kelsey, right?
Yeah, Kelsey's
Correct.
on the board.
Kelsey, and then the best available D, which would be, let's see, Saints, Titans, Colts, Saints. And then the Saints. Kelsey and the Saints.
All right, there you go. Zeroed it out. And Brian's team is done. We'll do reviews of our teams after we finish the draft. And then I have 3,700 left in the flex. So let's see.
Are you guys going to enter your team in the Millie Maker?
I have done that every week. The results have not been great.
I have not entered it.
Shocking.
Yeah. We did have
a guy who's 1-8 in the cage match has not won the Millionaire Maker yet with the line.
we had Spags had a team that would have been like top 1% in the Millionaire Maker. He put up like 194 on a low scoring week.
Yeah, I think it was week 2, right? And he drafted like all Saints.
Yeah, that's
if I
right.
remember correctly. Yeah, and they went absolutely nuts against Dallas.
Wow.
Oh no, you took Rock Jarrett, so I can't do that. Could go Ryan Miller. He scored a touchdown last week.
That's such a like making DFS lineups while taking a shit at 12:50.
He scored a touchdown.
Yeah, this guy's
where he's a good play.
Yeah, all right, I'll fire him.
All right, I'm going to the numbers here, and they look a little bit different depending on where you're looking. I got to go to 3,700 left. I put myself in a not ideal situation here. Here, I'm going to sort by fantasy points.
Yeah, how much do you have left? 3,700?
3,700.
Ouch.
Could go to Jalen Brooks or Kevontae Turpin. Who would have the backup connection with Cooper Rush? I guess Jalen Brooks.
Well, Neil, Kevontae Turpin was the MVP of the USFL in 2022. I don't know if you remember that.
I didn't watch the USFL.
Incredible.
I'm an XFL guy, Jake. Not a USFL guy.
Geez, as someone who had a press pass to the USFL championship game that year, I'm pretty saddened to hear.
Yeah.
Neil can't do it. Let's just start over.
Yeah. I'm gonna go. Actually, the highest projected is leaving 500 on the table here, which I hate to do, but Kendrick Bourne is the highest projected of the players that I could take here. So I'm just gonna do it. Gonna put Kendrick Bourne into my flex. I'm gonna leave 500 on the table. I donked it, but I feel good about my lineup anyway. Jake, close us out with a $4,500 receiver.
Okay. This is maybe slightly easier than what Neil was faced with, but not by much. It's probably, Pop Douglas is pretty clearly the best projection. I did take the Bears defense, but he's also not as much of a touchdown threat. Like, he generates his fantasy points from, kind of short area targets. So that's fine, I think, in this format. I'm never taking a guy like Ray McLeod in pretty much any format. McMillan's hurt. Shepard's hurt. Jeez. I don't like Parker Washington as a player. Westbrook Akina is off the board. Yeah, I think I just have to go Pop Douglas.
Seems like the pick.
Yeah.
Who came up with this idea? This is an interesting way to draft.
This was Al Smith. This was
Yeah.
his baby initially, and then he, this summer said he's going to stop doing content, and Scott immediately reached out to me and was like, I want to do a cage match show, and so it was Scott Barrett's idea to bring it over to this channel. He reached out to Al, got it approved. Al gave his blessing for us to take it over. But yeah, this is initially an Al Smizzle did the cage match.
Yeah.
All right, Pop Douglas for Jake, closing it out. And Jake, since you finished your team last, I will have you review your team first. How do you feel about your chances this week?
Yeah, I feel pretty great as long as Christian McCaffrey isn't limited. If we get news on Friday that Christian McCaffrey is only going to play 40% of the snaps, then I am in some trouble here, considering I really paid up at running back and did not grab any of the stud wide receivers that are on the board. Not that any of them were projecting as particularly great values, but yeah, I feel pretty good about this. I got the top point per dollar quarterback on the slate. I got ideally at least one running back that I think should have an amazing workload in Saquon Barkley, and another one that I'm hopeful will have an amazing workload in Christian McCaffrey. Again, I think because they held him out so long, that is at least worth a boost to his, projection for this week. They probably wouldn't be so cautious with the guy and then continue to be cautious as they slow roll him through the season. I think they're just kind of ready to unleash McCaffrey, and we know they need the weapons. Swift is more of just a volume-based pick. Same thing with Josh Downs, although I do think the matchup might be a little bit more favorable for Downs than, the on-paper stuff is letting on. Noah Brown and Pop Douglas are top values, and especially with Brown, the playing time is ticking up, which is really what we needed to see there. And then obviously I've got the Storm and Mormon, Taysom Hill, at 33 years old, still looking like a spry RB2 in the Saints offense, on top of being, their tight end one and probably their wide receiver one at this point too.
Yeah, true. Fair point. Looks solid enough. I'll be hoping that Christian McCaffrey is severely limited this week and you don't get any points out of him, because otherwise we'll look a lot better. Are we going to get Mac Jones this week? Sean G asks, and I think maybe is the latest I saw. It looked like sort of 50-50 to maybe leaning toward Mac Jones.
I forgot he even existed.
Yeah, he's on the Jaguars now. He's Trevor Lawrence's backup.
They're describing it as soreness for Lawrence. I would be kind of surprised if he sat with that, but Peterson did say he can't answer as to whether or not he'll play. But it's Wednesday. That's what every coach would say about every player, pretty much.
Yeah, I suppose.
I feel sad for the Jacksonville fans. When you get like a consensus number one QB, and you get lucky enough to get to pick them, and then it's like, how many years now? 4 years? What? How many years? What year is this?
I think 4
or 5, and it's not happening, and you're just like, God. It's which could happen with the Bears, by the way. I think Caleb looks pretty good. The offensive line shaky, but if he's not slinging it in year 2, year 3,
he's looking better than Trevor did his first year, at least.
Yeah. I would say Trevor is not it. He might have like a Baker Mayfield path, like maybe kind of just like a good QB on a different team later on, or
that
maybe Rich Gannon or something like. Vinny Testaverde, it can happen, like where they're still good later on, but he's not the Peyton Manning stud after a couple of years for sure.
Yeah.
I have a couple friends who are from Alaska. One of them moved here to Minnesota, is why I know him. But because they lived in Alaska, like they don't have any local sports teams, so they just chose their NFL teams. And my friend who lives here chose the Jaguars back when he was a kid, like when they were a brand new team. I think he said he liked the colors or something like that. And of course, they've just been trash. They've been really bad most of their franchise. I think they've had a couple good years, but his brother chose the Steelers. So they just went with the much better team who's had a ton of success over the course of their lifetimes. But I remember my friend who's a Jags fan, like when they got Trevor Lawrence, the excitement was palpable. Like they were so excited to get Trevor Lawrence. It was it Frank Gore who like scored a touchdown? There was some fluky thing where like a team should have tried to lose out, but then they like accidentally won a game. And I feel like it was Frank Gore or somebody.
No, it wasn't the Texans, right? Because that was the Stroud draft.
That was the Bears. Yeah, that was.
Yeah. You're right.
Yeah, I don't remember who it was, but some Jets.
I don't remember
that.
Part
Sean G says Jets beat the Rams. Okay. Yeah, I don't remember the specifics, but they ended up with Trevor Lawrence just like when they shouldn't have had a shot at him, and they were so excited, and now he's not that good.
Yeah.
All right, my team here, Sam Darnold, I have stacked up with Aaron Jones. Love the matchup against Jacksonville. Don't care that they're not the most positively correlated. Like I think Sam Darnold, Aaron Jones, getting all the Vikings points one way or the other. It's going to feel good against Jacksonville.
I mean, that has to be one of the most positively correlated quarterback
running back
duos. At the end of the day, Aaron Jones' target share is like 15-16% right now.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's a pretty strong quarterback running back pairing. Alvin Kamara, just a really strong point per dollar play and just really strong projection. Nick Westbrook-Akine, just a strong point per dollar play. Kendrick Bourne, kind of the same sort of strong point per dollar play. Garrett Wilson, I think, looks really good as the top option there in New York. DeAndre Hopkins, hoping that the trend continues from last week. George Kittle, one of the best point per dollar tight ends. And then, of course, the Bills defense going up against Joe Flacco, who was not afraid to throw interceptions to close it out. And then finally, Brian, and I feel decent about this team. I don't love that I left $500 on the table. I wish that I could go back and change that. But if I do happen to have a player who gets ruled out due to injury, I have $500 to play with. So I guess I have that going forward.
You're less likely to get duped, Neil. You're less likely to get
That's true. I'm avoiding dupes. A thing that I think I learned from Brian, speaking of dupes becoming a thing in Showdown. Brian, how about you? How do you feel about your team?
Well, thinking about this strategy now that I've played one, number one, never discuss players with Neil pre-show. It's definitely a strategy point everyone should do. And I think the clear strategy is you take the value plays right away. No studs. Don't do any of that stuff. That's stacks. Figure that out later. And so I shouldn't have taken Jefferson 1. I was thinking more of like battle royale brain. And then I wanted my bear stack, so I had to do that afterwards. But I mean, honestly, looking at the team, I kind of like it because then immediately I needed to save some money, and so then I actually did the right thing with getting some value here with hope. I mean, and Jarrett could be the highest owned player on the slate. I mean, if everyone is hurt, so like that's the kind of guy you want to take number one overall in this format, I would think, without thinking about this too much. And then the Kelsey Saints was just like, how much money do I have left at the end?
Fell into it.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't hate it. I mean, Warren was kind of a reach, I guess, because there wasn't a ton of
nice matchup with Washington. He's like in his role has been, I think, expanding a little bit.
Playable, I suppose. It's just there was just a salary. It was a salary thing.
Yeah.
So, but I think if I knew the value plays and did that strategy for the beginning, you don't put yourself in spots like that.
So I think that this was And that's been my strategy. Obviously, I just said I took Kate Otten with the first overall pick 1 week, and I think I've done similar plays where it's just like looks gross, but he's a top point per dollar play.
Yeah.
I've done that on some sites. This one, the value just nothing stood out as like great value.
Yeah.
So I think your approach was fine for this slate because there wasn't any value that was like, oh, I need to like that's an awesome value to get into your lineup. So I think this was like kind of a weird exception to that, maybe.
I also feel your lineups last week, I don't think are as bad. In my head, I'm like, these lineups aren't very good.
They don't look like this
I'm like, oh wait, no, they're fine.
Yeah. No, yeah. Last week's lineup, I think they felt better last week.
Yeah.
I mean, this one, I left 500 on
I feel it's fine right now. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. I mean, I didn't run 80,000 simulations, that got to run 100.
You do have to run 100.
Then we'll see.
Well, this is fun. Brian, thank you for coming on and drafting with us. Where can people find you? Do you have any content that you're doing upcoming this week? Tell us about where they can find you.
I have 2 shows tomorrow. So I'm doing a Battle Royale show on Endgame Syndicate channel, YouTube channel, and Davis Maddox channel. We co-stream at 10:30 Real America time, aka Central time. And then Lulz, which is 12:30 Real America Central time. And that's all I have scheduled. I might do Davis's Sunday show too. We'll see.
Nice. And those are all on different channels. So you're doing your first show is on Endgame Syndicate and Davis's channel, and then you're going to be your own channel and Pete's channel for Lulz.
My Twitch channel and Pete's.
Oh, that's right. You don't do your YouTube channel anymore.
No, we're trying to it did the traffic would get all screwy or something, so we just did it straight to Pete's. Yeah, and I'm like, well, just throw it to my Twitch channel. Who cares? But like, no one watches on Twitch. People
keep telling me that I should send my content to Twitch, and I'm like, I don't know what Twitch is. Like, just like it's never been something that I've used. Sounds like it's not really worth it. Maybe
it's just like YouTube for gamers.
Yeah.
You do you still do Twitter? Like, do you?
I still do it to Twitter.
Yeah, that makes way more sense than Twitch, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. Jake, how about you? Where can people find you, and what do you have coming up?
Yeah, can find all my content over at Fantasy Points. I'll be helping Scott Barrett out with his Week 10 slate breakdown. I imagine it'll be a tough one, assuming no value opens up, but we'll have a full overview of the Week 10 slate ready for you. I believe Saturday around noon is when that article goes up, and then I'll also have a couple shows on Friday. I do Cashing Points with Grant Barfield and Hilo on the Fantasy Points YouTube channel. We walk the slate, go game by game, talk about all our favorite plays, whether it's value, contrarian angles, what have you. And then afterwards, I do the Underdog Drafter Party with Ryan Heath, where we draft Battle Royale teams, talk about the Week 10 slate, favorite scroll down options, top values. We also answer any pressing questions, you may have, whether it's start sit or Dynasty, DFS, Battle Royale. So definitely check that out. It's been a ton of fun getting more immersed in the Battle Royale world after playing DFS for the last 10 or so years. I've really been enjoying a bit of a pivot to Battle Royale. Obviously still playing a ton of DFS, but it's been a lot of fun. So definitely check that out. 8:30 on Fridays on the Fantasy Points YouTube channel.
And you guys, you've had some winning lineups there on the Friday night show, right?
Yeah, we've had, I believe, 3 different times either me and Ryan has finished top 5 in like the $25 fullback dive. So that's been going pretty well. Larger field has been, a bit more all over the place, but obviously that's how it goes in these, tournaments that have 40 or 50,000 entries. But yeah, it's been nice to at least see, some consistent winnings in the smaller field stuff. And I think the strategy is very straightforward. It's, something we've been highlighting over and over again on the show and have certainly had success.
Very cool. Yeah. Check that out as well. And then as for me, I have my Thursday Night Football article will be published on Fantasy Points tomorrow morning or afternoon, whenever it gets going. And then in the evening, actually, I'll be doing 2 shows on my own channel tomorrow. One at 11:30 Real America time, that's Central time, going over the Thursday Night Football slate with Adam Scher. That might be, I guess that probably won't be streamed to Endgame Syndicate also because Brian will be on it. But I'll be doing that show in the morning. And then, of course, prior to lock, I'll be doing another breakdown of the Thursday Night Football slate, using Fantasy Points tools to look at usage, defensive matchups, et cetera, figuring out the best way to approach the Thursday Night Football slate for DraftKings Showdown. So that's where you'll be able to find me tomorrow. But this has been a lot of fun. Thank you, Brian, for joining us for this one. Jake, as always. And then, of course, thank you guys for watching. It has been fun, and we'll be back next Wednesday. See you then.
What?
Why are you shaking your head? You're welcome.